"Why are my things out in the hallway?" my husband yelled. "Honey, you don't live here anymore. Go move in with your new girlfriend." Claire's hands trembled as she folded Brad's expensive shirts into cardboard boxes. 23 years of marriage, and it had come to this, packing his belongings like he was some stranger moving out of a dorm room. The silk tie she'd bought him for their anniversary last month felt cold against her fingers. She remembered how he'd kissed her that morning, whispering promises about their weekend getaway to Napa Valley. That was before she found Jessica's lipstick in his car, before she discovered the hotel receipts hidden in his jacket pocket, before everything she thought she knew about her life crumbled like stale cookies. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 11 times. Brad wouldn't be home from his business trip until tomorrow afternoon. Perfect. Claire grabbed another box from the garage, her wedding ring catching the light from the chandelier they'd picked out together at that antique store in downtown Chicago. How naive she'd been, thinking that finding the perfect light fixture meant they'd found perfect happiness. The photo albums were the hardest part. Claire flipped through pages of family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings with their twin daughters who were now away at college. In every picture, Brad's smile looked genuine. His arm around her waist seemed protective, loving. When had that changed? When had those tender touches become mechanical gestures performed for an audience? She found the picture from Jessica's office Christmas party, the one where Brad had insisted they attend together as the perfect couple. Jessica had been there, of course. Laughing at Brad's jokes a little too loudly, her hand lingering on his shoulder when she congratulated him on his promotion. Claire had felt a strange knot in her stomach that night, but she dismissed it as paranoia. Now, staring at Jessica's predatory smile in the photograph, Claire felt something darker than hurt, something that tasted like copper pennies and burned like acid. She carefully placed the photo on top of Brad's belongings and continued packing. By midnight, 3 boxes sat in the hallway like silent accusations. Claire moved through their house, her house now, with methodical precision. She packed his favorite coffee mug, the one with the chip on the handle that he refused to throw away. She folded his lucky golf shirt, the faded blue one he wore every Saturday morning before heading to the country club. Each item told a story of their shared life, and each one felt like a small betrayal as she sealed it away. The hardest discovery came when she was clearing out his nightstand drawer. Tucked behind his reading glasses and prescription bottles, she found a small velvet box. For a moment, her heart stopped. Had he been planning to surprise her? Had she misjudged everything? She opened it with shaking fingers. Inside wasn't a necklace or earrings for her. It was a delicate gold bracelet with a small charm, a tiny heart engraved with the letter J. The receipt was still in the box, dated just 2 weeks ago. The same day, he'd told her he was too tired for their usual dinner date. At 2 a.m, Claire made 3 phone calls. The first was to Marcus, her lawyer friend from book club, who answered on the 4th ring with a groggy voice. She explained the situation in calm, measured tones, surprising herself with how steady she sounded. Marcus whistled low when she mentioned the financial irregularities. He promised to meet her first thing Monday morning with divorce papers and a plan to freeze their assets. The second call was to Jessica's supervisor at the marketing firm where both she and Brad worked. Claire had done her research. The company had strict policies about workplace relationships, especially when they involved senior management like Brad. She left a detailed voicemail explaining the situation, including dates, times, and evidence of their affair conducted during business hours using company resources. The third call was to a locksmith. He'd be there at 8 a.m. to change all the locks. Brad's key would no longer work, just like their marriage no longer worked. Brad's face cycled through confusion, anger, and finally fear as he processed the scene before him, his belongings stacked like accusations in the hallway. His wife standing in the doorway with an expression he'd never seen before, calm, resolute, and utterly finished with him. He opened his mouth to speak, probably to launch into one of his practiced explanations, but Claire held up her hand. She told him about the bracelet, about the bank statements, about the phone calls she'd made. With each revelation, Brad's face grew paler. When she mentioned Jessica's supervisor, he actually staggered backward against the doorframe. The company investigation would begin Monday morning. His career, built on 20 years of careful networking and political maneuvering, would crumble faster than their marriage had. Claire handed him a manila envelope containing copies of all the evidence she'd gathered, along with Marcus's business card. She explained that the divorce papers would be filed Tuesday, that their assets were frozen, and that he had exactly 10 minutes to load his belongings into his car before she called the police to have him removed for trespassing. Brad made several attempts to argue, to negotiate, to somehow salvage the situation he'd created, but Claire had moved beyond anger into something colder and more final. She watched him load box after box into his sedan, the same car where she'd found Jessica's lipstick, the same car he'd used to drive to hotels and romantic dinners while telling Claire he was working late. As he drove away, Claire noticed her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, watching from her front porch with unconcealed curiosity. Tomorrow, the whole neighborhood would know. By next week, everyone at the country club would be whispering. Brad's carefully constructed image as the devoted family man would join his marriage in ruins. Claire closed the door and leaned against it, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. 23 years of shared history, reduced to cardboard boxes and legal documents. But underneath the grief and betrayal, she felt something unexpected: relief. For the first time in months, she could breathe freely in her own home. The house felt lighter somehow, as if Brad's deception had been a physical weight pressing down on everything. She walked to the kitchen and made herself a cup of tea using her favorite mug, the one Brad had always complained was too delicate. Outside, the October sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and the complicated business of untangling a shared life. But tonight, Claire would sleep peacefully in her own bed, in her own house, free from lies and betrayal.